Hello all. Welcome to this webinar by the Aria University. We have with us our provost, Dr. Venkat Gudivada.
Namaste.
He is also the chair of the computer science department. So, sir will introduce the university to you and then I will introduce the faculty to you.
Okay, so you want me to introduce the university?
Yes, a little
Okay,
bit about.
sure. So many of you know it used to be called University of Silicon Andhra. Now to increase its scope and also to appeal to all people segments in the society. Earlier this year, it was renamed to Aria University, ARIA, Aria University. It's spelled a little bit differently, but pronounced Aria University. So it offers several programs. You have certificate programs, diploma programs, also master's programs in Telugu language, Sanskrit language, Kuchipudi dance, Bharatanatyam dance, Carnatic music, and Hindustani music. So we're also in the process of getting PhD programs approved for Kuchipudi dance. Actually, the Indian classical dance with two concentrations, one in Kuchipudi, one in Bharatanatyam. Also, another PhD program, classical Indian music with two concentrations in Hindustani music and Carnatic music. They are in the works. We are expecting them to be approved sometime in August. So right now, there's also people applying, inquiring about PhD programs. So if you know people who might be interested in PhD programs, you can spread the word around and they can contact admissions at aria.edu and they will connect you with the right people like professors who are in charge of these programs. So thank you for joining. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Yashoda Thakore.
Thank you, sir. At the Aria University, like most of us know, we have the certificate, diploma, and the master's programs. The certificate and diploma programs are designed for 1.5 years or so. And the master's program is designed for 2 years, but then you have this facility of doing one course and each semester and spreading it over 3 years if it is necessary for you. For the certificate and diploma programs, you are eligible for it from the 9th grade onwards, and there is no upper age limit for this. Master's program, all we need is an undergrad and 5 years of dancing experience. We'll take it from there once you are with us. It gives me great pleasure to introduce my faculty to you. I'm the proud chair of this wonderful faculty that I have in Kuchipudi department. Right today we have with us Dr. Katyayani Kanak and Dr. Yamini Kurati. You must excuse me if I become a little informal because we have a very, very friendly ambience within us. So Katyayani has been working in the field of Kuchipudi for the last 16 years in various capacities as a dance scholar, curator, and teacher over the last 16 years, and has brought unique and new perspectives to every aspect of the form. She has presented work on various platforms, including Darpana, Carnatic Fine Arts, as a soloist. Her thesis, From Stage to Screen and Back, a study of the dialogue between Kuchipudi and Telugu cinema, is hailed as a benchmark in research on the form. She's the co-founder of Lasya Kalpa Foundation and has brought many artists to Hyderabad and has curated the dance film festival, Ghora, the Grotesque Goddess. She also portrayed the role of Mahakali in the Kuchipudi production. Her being the muse of her guru's choreographic endeavors, undertaking the literature research and costume design and translating those choreographies into her intelligent and intuitive body, have transformed the path of Kuchipudi on some level. She has also exposed herself to brief and yet immersive learning experiences in various forms of art from varied schools of thought ranging from Navarasa Sadhana, rooted in the Kuriyatam tradition, to mime based on Western performance philosophies. She has formed many ideas, values, and created her unique aesthetic that translates through her choreographies. Katyayani brings to her art a freshness and a depth of understanding that adds immense value to both her journey and that of the independent dancers she mentors. So I will introduce Yamini now to you, and you will realize the diversity that we have in our department. It excites me so much while Katyayani talks about modern, how we talk about it from a modern perspective and looking at Kuchipudi from a modern perspective. Yamini brings in the very rooted Kuchipudi flavor from the soil of Kuchipudi village. Yamini, she's an exponent of Kuchipudi. Yamini Yashoda Kurati is her name. She is the epitome of grace, precision, and elegance. And this is what is written in her bio, but I can vouch for it too. Under the tutelage of eminent scholars from Kuchipudi village, she began her training in 1994 at the tender age of 11. For 11 years, she honed her skills with a single-minded dedication. With degrees in Kuchipudi, Nritya, and Yakshagana, she went on to win 2 gold medals and earn her PhD in Kuchipudi dance dramas, making her one of the most versatile dancers today. She has been working as an associate professor at Aria University, California, for the past 6 years, having received training in Kalapas by Dr. Chinta Ramanathan, Yakshaganas under Padma Sri Vedantam Satyanarayana Sarma and Pasumarthi Rattai Sarma, and solo dances and Nritya Rupakas under Vedantam Rattai Sarma and Vedantam Radheshyam. Yamini has worked extensively on presenting the nuances of the theatrical tradition of Kuchipudi. That's what she gives you in her courses at the university. Her vast exposure to the different genres of Kuchipudi dance drama tradition has allowed her to understand and analyze the form in a wider perspective. Knowing that classical dance has benefited her in immeasurable ways, her dream now is to share her extensive knowledge with her students with the vision of keeping the art alive and thriving for generations to come. Thank you for being here, Katya and Yamini. The field is now yours.
Thank you, ma'am, for that very warm introduction. And I thank all of you who have come here. And it was very exciting for Yamini and me to do this together and share notes on how we are looking at it. So I hope you will enjoy this as well. Taking off from what Yashoda ma'am said, both Yamini and I are contemporary Kuchipudi dancers, learning, researching, teaching, and choreographing at the same time. And yet, our training couldn't be more different. One could go so far as saying that she trained in a theatrical form while I trained in a dance form. Yamini's training in the village of Kuchipudi included extensively studying and learning character portrayals, storylines, and dramatics embedded in kalapas and yakshaganas under hereditary artists who were her gurus. Mine, on the other hand, is entirely in the solo branch of the form, created around content created based on Vagekara's works, Carnatic compositional genres, comparing movement vocabularies with other classical dance forms, and occurred in urban settings from gurus who trained under hereditary artists. Through today's presentation, we aim at reflecting on these dichotomies. While Yamini will delve into the movement vocabulary that accompanied the content of the theatrical Bhagavata tradition, I will take a deep dive into the myriad transitions this theatrical form underwent in terms of both content and movement. While she deals with what was, I deal with what it became, and owing to which influences it changed thus. Yamini will also reflect on the solo version that continues to be practiced in the village, one that drew its movement vocabulary entirely from the theatrical tradition, and I will follow the trajectory of some key players from the village whose work was a coalescence of their training in theatrical tradition with innumerable influences of the then contemporary dance trends and other absolutely new technological mediums. I'll now hand it over to Yamini.
Thank you, Katya. Kuchipudi is traditionally a theatrical art form originating with Kalapas and Yakshaganas. In this viewpoint, when we study Angika Abhinaya, there are some unique features that can be associated with these traditional forms. Kuchipudi Bhagavatulu had a highly structured format with which they taught. They first began with Samu, which is a specific series of exercise so as to prepare the body. Here we can see Vedanta Rattai Master Garu was teaching Samu to the students. They taught the Adugulu, which we all know as steps. Then they went to Jatis, small items like Kaupam, Kirtana, Tarangams, etc. And then they finally finally the character-based training. Even within the character-based training, they would start with the smaller roles such as child characters, Sakhis, or other minor characters like Dwarapalaka, ministers, and so on. And gradually, as they gained more experience, the dancers would progress to more prolific roles such as Satyabhama, Usha, Banasura, or the like. Let's take a specific look at Adugulu. In that, there are several steps that can be noted. The basic structure of the Adugulu are Matru Adugulu, Panchajatula Adugulu, Palgudu Varsalu, Tirikalu, Kolapimpu, etc. Matru Adugulu are the basic and most commonly used steps. Chaukam, Mandekoppu, Natu Adugulu, Challakavam Adugulu, Chuttu Adugulu would all fall in this category. Historically, what needs to be understood is that the Kuchipudi Bhagavatulu coined this terminology based on their profession, which was actually agriculture, not professional dancers. During the off season, it's from January to June, they would perform kalapas and yakshaganas. They observed the natural movements from their day to day life and converted those movements into dance and coined the colloquial terminology based on their observations. For example, let's see how this applies to a step. In Palgudu Varsalu, they named it after the farming tool Palugu. When one digs into the ground, they used their lower body force to dig and then raise their body to lift heavy clay, soil, or stone from the ground. They took the essence of this movement, the force, the dig and raising motion of the body, and converted that into an aesthetically pleasing step that can be used for dance. So in Palgudu Varsalu, mostly the knee movement can be observed like this. Let's look at another example. The Natu step is based on the planting of a new seedling that they would separate and using the fingers poke a hole and put it into the ground. In Telugu, we call this process as Natlu Veyadam, Vari Natu Veyadam. Using that movement, they translated it into the movements of the feet in Natadulu. It can be concluded that most of the steps were based on careful observation of the natural world and given a life and soul of the step. Here also we can see the Challakavam pattern. The movement of the torso can be observed as like while churning the buttermilk. Understanding this soul or essence of the step will enhance a comprehensive understanding of the nuance of the technique. Chuttadugulu are ones that are done in a circle, but not just in any way. Generally, we do Chaukam, Katarnatu, etc. in circular pattern, but they are not considered as Chuttadugulu. The Chuttadugu category is one where the body is facing the wall at all times. Here, I'd like to show the difference between normal circular pattern steps and the Chuttadugulu. If we take the Katarnatu step, the movement of the body goes in flip-flapping movement, like that thing. Say, hit the thumb, hit that thumb, that thing. Say, hit the tam. Even we are moving in a circle, the body is not constantly facing the wall. So we are going outward and inward movement in Bharatanatyam step. Suppose if we take Chaukam or Diditais, like opposite Diditais, in this pattern, we move around in a circular pattern. Right. So here also the body is not facing towards the front wall. So we are following moving in the circular pattern. So that's why these are not come under Chuttadulu. Where in Chuttadulu, you can observe that the body always turn towards the wall side, front wall side. That means, suppose if we take tattai, te tam, ita tam tattai, te tam, ita tam tam, jinatam tattai, even if we take Datti, even there is a torso movement, but the body is turning towards the ball side. So these type of steps are considered as Chuttadulu. So that's the difference. We can understand what come under the Chuttadulu and we can clearly understand all the circular patterns are not come under Chuttadulu. In Panchajatula Adugulu, originally they were based on four: Tisram, Chaturasram, Khandam, and Misram. Actually, Sankiranam was added later. Even it is titled as Panchajatula Adugulu. In Chaturasra Jati, there were several main steps. Of those, the one that should be very familiar to you. Taita kidatakalu, tatte hittalu, tam digidigita, tam digi 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 digi. Steps. All these fall under that category. Even the Jaradulu. One important point of note is that in some schools of thought, there is no difference between Taita Kidataka and Katarnadu. But there is a marked difference in the traditional school of thought. For example, if we take Katarnadu, so Katara is a scissors, right? So particularly in Katarnadu, we have to cross our feet and do that movement, which is familiar to the Natu. So this is what we understand as Natu Veda. Right. So in Katarnatu, particularly, we have to cross our feet and do the jump on toes. So the Katarnatu goes like Tattai. Te ta, he ta, tattai. They particularly in Natu steps, the heel goes and hit the hip. Whether that is a Katarnatu or Venakanatu, Pakanatu, whatever that is, the heel goes up and hits the hip. But wherein Taita Kitataka, Tai, Ta, Kitta, Taka, Tate, Hitta, Tom. So here, we are not first lifting our leg back. So we are taking our leg inside and after crossing our feet, we are releasing and jumping on toes. So this is the difference between Taita Kirsaka and Katarnatu in old style. What becomes another layer to technique is that although these steps were used in Kalapas and Yakshaganas, they would convert these steps based on the character portrayal. That is, Usha performing a Didittai does not and should not look the same as Satyabhama or Hiranyakasyapa performing the same step. Here again, you have to understand the soul of the character, and therein lies the unique beauty of Kuchipudi. For example, the unique step is Muktai. Right. We can observe the same Muktai in Sigayana for Satyabhama's character and for Usha and also the Hiranyakasyapa's character. So suppose if we take Sigayana Madharva. the unique Muktai of Kuchipudi. Bani. And if you come to Hiranyakashipa's character, Kanakakasipudanu tanu chedu Dhanakatoda Kanatu Savakuvachenu. The same Muktai goes like Kanakakasipudanu tanu chedu Dhanakatoda Kanatu Savakuvachenu. Right. So there is no difference in the Muktai. But when you present the same step, we can observe some difference as per the character. So in Sikayenu Yamma, we do the same time like Sikayenu Yamma Peredu Cheppa. So the movements are very light and even the jump also. So we include all these steps for Hiranyakashipa role also. But the projection of the movement is differs. So it goes like the same tie, same finishing, same steps, and the same step also. But the difference is we perform the same step according to the character. So this is what the character-based training. In Jatis, you will primarily see the usage of Taita Kitatakalu, Totumangalu, Diditais, etc. In Sahityam, we can see the usage of Palgudu Varsalu, Natu Adugulu, Chaukam, and the finishings. So these patterns are repeated but based on the character's psyche, body language, and essence. The step must be performed. So this is where the artist's skill come into play. So now let's see how this transform at the outside of the Kuchipudi village. I hand over it to Katya.
Thank you, Yamini. It was beautiful. With a prayer that my technology will not give up on me, I'm going to now share my screen. Sri Chitrapu Narsimha Rao made me perform in the movie Mohini Rukmangada. That was my first film experience. Balagopala Tarangam, female impersonation, direct take. After the movie was released, the dance appeared so ridiculous. Hasyaspadam is the exact word that is used here, that we, which refers to hereditary Kuchipudi artists, along with the audiences, could not bear to watch it. And so we decided never to have anything to do with cinema anymore. So later, when we were asked to work for Malapilla, we refused. But while making the movie Raitu Bidda, Goodavali Ramabrahmam waited near the outskirts of the village, secretly sent a word for me, took me in his car to Bezawada and made me sign an agreement. The performance in Raitu Bidda was quite satisfactory and I gained good publicity through it. Na Toli Cinema Anubhavam, my first film experience by Vedantam Raghavaya in the magazine Vijay Chitra. And now I quote V.A.K. Rangarao. The hereditary Kuchipudi artist would have choreographed 1,000 films and 1,000 dance numbers, not including the ubiquitous movement songs. What we aim to understand through this enquiry is how artists hailing from that village, belonging to a rural theatrical male performing art tradition, went from engaging with cinema in a way that felt hasyaspadam to having created some of the most iconic film choreographies spanning more than 3 decades. In order to do so, we'll view the dialogue between Kuchipudi and Telugu cinema to understand how the Kuchipudi artists molded themselves, their art, to suit the newly arrived commercial medium. Also, this particular enquiry views their work on the celluloid as a documentation of the various transitions the form underwent over those decades, the mid-1900s, in order to emerge in the latter part of the century as a solo gender-inclusive dance style. But a little background story first. Of the Kuchipudi trinity that migrated to the celluloid, Vedantam Raghavaya seems to have had the most celebrated career as a performer. In fact, it is said that the time period in which he performed extensively, from approximately 1926 till about 1944, was known amongst the then artists as the Raghavaya Sekam, roughly translated as the era of Raghavaya. Initially, he trained under his own father, Vedantam Ramaya, a Sutradhara, and was later initiated into formal training in music and dance under Chinta Venkatramaya, who was by then successfully presenting Yakshaganas. His portrayals of child characters in various Yakshaganas seem to have enjoyed immense success. Further, he mastered the Kaisiki Vritti, which translates as the graceful dance, and became the most noted Drukumsaka of his time. His prowess in music, especially in rendering Darvus and Konogolu, and his Puradrupam, a term often employed by hereditary artists to describe facial beauty, were his assets, and he donned female roles in Kalapas and Yakshaganas. Raghavaya also went on to portray the roles of male characters such as Hiranyakasipa, Sri Rama, and others in these Yakshaganas. He then underwent training in Padabhinayam and other aspects of solo performance under Lakshminarayana Shastri and included Adhyatma Ramana Kirtanas and Ashtapadis in his performances. Thus, Raghavaya's training and performance was very much a manifestation of what was mainstream at that time, with the required blend of music, drama, dance, literature performed through the night lit by flames from torches. Pasumarthi Krishnamurti had but 1 year of schooling, as he was summoned by his maternal grandfather, Chinta Venkatramaya, to train under him. And so, at the age of 7, his journey in the art of Kuchipudi began with Bhama Kalapam. It was furthered through being initiated into the Yakshagana performance, in which he played the roles of Lava, Kusa, and others, just as Raghavaya had before him. Krishnamurti's training continued under Chinta Ramurti and Chinta Krishnamurti, the sons of Venkatramaya, both of whom are said to have taken over the mantle from their father and proved to be successful Sutradharas themselves. His competence in Yakshagana equaled that in Kalapas, as he would perform some of the Darvus from the Bhama Kalapam and was also adept with Gola Kalapam. At the age of 13, he started performing solos, as part of which were presented Javalis such as Tattara Padanela and Adhyatma Ramayana Kirtana such as Cheri Vinave Sauri. One would speculate that Krishnamurti's stint in these performance modes continued for barely a couple of years, for as will be discussed below, other genres appended themselves to Kuchipudi's diversity, altering its course significantly. The trajectory of Pedasatyam's life in the village, though, was quite different from those of the other two described above. His very initiation into art happened when he was 14, by the time by which most of his contemporaries would have already performed extensively in the child characters in Yakshaganas. His father joined him under the tutelage of Chinta Venkatramaya, who trained him for but 1 year, but unfortunately he was deemed unfit for the Yakshagana genre. And also, Venkatramaya redirected him to Lakshminarayana Shastri, who had by the time begun his experiments with the solo and was training and conducting performances of his son, Jagannatha Sarma. Though he spent almost 4 years accompanying him on his tours, Pedasatyam's learning under Lakshminarayana Shastri was more passive, watching and observing the practice and performance of Jagannath Sarma and reading the books that he had access to. Hence, after unsuccessful attempts at blending into the performance circuit of the village of Kuchipudi and its art, Pedasatyam made the decision to shift his medium of art to painting, a skill he knew by then he possessed. In order to do so, in 1939, he moved to Machilipatnam and enrolled as a student in the National College to train under the celebrated painter Adavi Bapiraju, little knowing at the time that this move would lead him to other unexplored pastures. While Yakshaganas and Kalapas occupied the lion's share in the performance culture of Kuchipudi during the 1930s and 40s, the solo, through Vedantam Lakshminarayana Shastri, was slowly but definitely making its way to the core of the art form, as Shastri had taken a peripatetic journey teaching and presenting solo repertoire. A fascinating character of the solo, as presented by Shastri through his son and other disciples such as Tandava Krishna, was the commingling of genres. The very classical Padavarnam and the not so classical Hunter dance were presented as part of the same repertoire. And the not so classical, for instance, even though elements from the Devdasi and Mezuvani tradition had found their way into Sastri's repertoire, his performance manual do not show that a complete margam was presented by him, as was in the female courtesan performances. In fact, from the information available in the Nartanam issue dedicated to him, the one program notes provided show that out of 8 dance numbers, only 2 belong to genres that went on to become a part of the classical version of the form, while the other 6 have oriental themes. What is even more intriguing is that a review of the same performance promptly names this recital as the Oriental Dance Recital, given by Tandava Krishna and Party, in brackets Kuchipudi dancers, which is an interesting indicator of the fluidity of the early solo version of the form. Thus, Shastri drove the form of Kuchipudi in a manner that it could be reinterpreted with a definitive yet simultaneously extremely flexible solo performative structure. Alongside, there was another small group of hereditary Kuchipudi artists who deviated further from the traditional performative genres to bring together for solo performance those elements that were trending at the time, namely the Oriental dance, also in the movement aesthetic. The Occidental invention that Oriental dance was involved an aesthetic whose texture was conjured through an exotic imagination surrounding the Orient and its ethos. In India, though it was never confused as a dance truly native to the land, it managed to garner immense popularity. In the context of the present study, Uday Shankar and Ram Gopal emerged as two key figures whose aesthetic was driven by the conceptualization of Oriental dance, as it was from their own understanding of Indian myth, imagery, gods, drapes, music, art, and movement. It is important to know that Ram Gopal was based out of Bangalore, where he had an institution through which he trained numerous disciples in not just his style, but also in forms such as Kathakali. Also, in Uday Shankar's kaleidoscopic life, the city of Madras played a prominent role, as it was here that he stayed during the 1940s, as was provided infrastructure by S.S. Vasan of Gemini Studios to create his dream project, the movie Kalpana. The prolonged gestation period of this movie resulted in Uday Shankar spending more time in Madras than initially expected, in turn playing a prominent role in altering the dance texture of Madras at the time. Right from the famous Travancore sisters to film choreographers such as D. Venugopal, most dancers in Madras of various degrees of competence were at some point or the other a part of the mega project. And in short, all the dance masters, had worked with him or were inspired especially by his arm movements, said the actor Kanchana. As will be seen below, Uday Shankar's inspirational power, along with the gushing presence of Oriental genre, bring to light pertinent elements that have played a significant role in Kuchipudi's transition to Madras and to the celluloid. So while Lakshminarayan Shastri was presenting his repertoire with an amalgamation of a wide range of dances, Raghavaya deviated further from the tradition in the village with his experiments with the Oriental dance, and he wasn't alone. Pedasatyam too had been bit by the Oriental bug around that time. According to evidences in written documents, Pedasatyam's first visit to Madras was to perform the Kapali Natyam in the film Mirabai. But informants in the Kuchipudi village, who were his junior contemporaries, insisted that he had been to Madras even before Raghavaya, and the inspiration he had to experiment with the Oriental might have been a culmination of all these visits. It is said that there were occasions in which he would sell parts of the land he owned in Kuchipudi to fund his training in other forms. His elder brother, Vempati Ramurthy, was employed as a violinist in the Gemini Studios in Madras, which provided Pedasatyam with a base in Madras to explore other possibilities. Some informants have also mentioned that he trained under Mylapore Gauri Ammal for a brief while. But Oriental dance was then gaining prominence in Madras as it was in the rest of the country, which probably enabled him to witness performances of the likes of Uday Shankar. And it was this exposure that he had to this genre that truly aided Pedasatyam in finding his niche. His return to Kuchipudi post Mirabai coincided with that of Raghavaya's after Raitubidda, the year 1939, and together they brought the Oriental to Kuchipudi, the village, and its art. Prabhakaranatya Mandali was the name of the troupe Raghavaya and Pedasatyam formed, and it was the first of its kind for the performative culture of Kuchipudi, which until then had troupes named after the family name of the Sutradhara. It included dancers from the hereditary families such as Krishnamurti, but also from non-hereditary backgrounds like Tandava Krishna, Kasturi Sivarao, Pullamma, and Subbulu. Its musicians at various times were Bokka Kumaraswamy, Vempati Ramurthy, and Pasumarthi Venkateshwarlu, amongst others. The group's permutations were many and its trajectory hazy, but even the barely available evidences conjure a foggy yet interesting roadmap of the Kuchipudi artists' experiments with the Oriental dance. Their brief but important experimentation with the Oriental dance points to a back and forth nature of their attempts to move away from tradition as it was then practiced in Kuchipudi. And before they withdrew from the stage completely to become film dance directors, their endeavor to blend into what was in vogue at the time The thematic Oriental movement aesthetic not only brought to their performance new packaging, but also novel content and exotic vocabulary. Being Kuchipudi artists, their interpretation of this genre was based on the tradition that they themselves had practiced until then. Though not many of the Darugos from the tradition of Kuchipudi found their way into the performances of this troupe, purely thematic dances that were based on lyrics from Sanskrit texts such as the Gita Govindam were juxtaposed with various folk songs. Also, choreographies that were character based, like the Hunter dance, became the highlights. Another interesting feature of this experimentation was donning male and female roles alternately. So, when Raghavaya and Krishnamurti were lead dancers, Raghavaya would become the male and Krishnamurti would become the female. While when Raghavaya and Pedasatyam were the lead dancers, Raghavaya would become the female and Pedasatyam would become the male. Pieces like the Hunter dance and the Shiva Parvati dance that Pedasatyam and Saudamini, his wife in Madras, performed were accompanied by only instrumental music, which had never happened in Kuchipudi until then, employing the tabla, harmonium, flute, and clarinet. Their choice in incorporating these instruments were hitherto unused for Kuchipudi performances. It's an indicator of their awareness of the trends of the time. This was an awareness, however, that did not stop with the musicality of the popular Oriental aesthetic, but percolated into other significant aspects, for instance, bodily movement. As mentioned above, even though Lakshminarayana Shastri incorporated dances based on the Oriental themes, the dancers in Prabhakar Natya Mandali adopted the Oriental not just in the thematic, but also in its movement aesthetic. In conversations with informants who belong to hereditary Kuchipudi artists, the exotic nature of this movement aesthetic adopted in the Prabhakar Natya Mandali was brought to attention. The important observation to be underscored here is that the same was not attributed to the style of Lakshminarayana Shastri. Adjectives such as brilliant, vibrant, new, latest, creative, like you can see on the slide, were generously thrown in while describing their experiences of witnessing their performances. While the traditional Adugu patterns may have been a part of the movement vocabulary that was employed, their overall aesthetic and movement seems to have been alien to Kuchipudi until then. This quote here that's on the slide was provided a very big insight for me when I was doing my research, where Pasumarthi Venugopala Krishna Dharma says, we also tried to form a troupe like that, but what happened was our style was Kuchipudi, theirs was not. It was a very different style. So that means they recognized that what they were doing and what these three were doing were very vastly different. As is understood in this perception, the hereditary artists could sense this. Also, they could not quite imitate them nor imbibe the creative dance style from them to blend into their performance. Bhagavatula Yagnanarayana Sarma stressed upon his opinion that the dance presentation of the Prabhakar Natya Mandali was quite new to those in the village, while Bhagavatula Sitarama Sarma went on to say that he had witnessed the performance of Pedasatyam and Saudamini and found that it was not Bharatanatyam, not Kuchipudi, but some brilliant latest dance. Certain broad descriptions like the Hunter dance was choreographed in the Kathakali idiom and Saudamini's snake charmer dance was vibrant are the only insights that fuel our imagination as to what they did. It is quite unfortunate that there's no recorded documentation of any of their stage performances, yet an understanding of the choice of the aesthetic can be arrived at through an analysis of the video documentation of their works that is available, which is the film dances. It is this invaluable visible archive, as Ramya Pucha frames it, which provides the hitherto missed insights into the early stage of the evolution of solo in Kuchipudi outside the village. It had been discussed in studies and in this that the repertoire Lakshmi Shastri drew from the female courtesan traditions became an important and integral part of the Kuchipudi solo repertoire. But what about the technique employed? The very same visual archive can be approached for insights into technique employed in early solo versions of Kuchipudi on the stage. For instance, in the film Swargasima, Vedantam Raghavaya was a dance director. The Padam Manchidinamu Nede in Ragam Anand Bhairavi is performed. V.A.K. Rangarao mentions in a conversation narrating a conversation with Raghavaya that the dance director claimed that the choreography in that Padam was the exact same as what they had done on stage. This is also one of, it's also recorded in one of V.A.K. Rangarao's writings. On the other hand, in a discussion with Professor Anuradha Jonalgadda, during which these choreographies were viewed, she recollected the entire choreography of the same Padam, which was taught to her by Saskia Krisenbohm. Almost incredulously, the semblance between the dance that Professor Anuradha Jonalgadda was taught and the dance that was performed by Bhanumati in the film was too great to be discounted. Instead of viewing these two pieces of information as mutually negating each other, if viewed as informing the same question of idiom, they provide curious insights into the movement vocabulary of early Kuchipudi solo. It can be argued that the hereditary Kuchipudi artists drew from the female performance traditions not only the repertoire but also their movement vocabulary. Now, I really hope this video will play. For instance, in another movie, Raitu Bidda, which is the first film actually to have Kuchipudi performances by a Kuchipudi artist, the choreography employed in the Dasatara Sabdam follows the movements that are recognizable as Kuchipudi even today. In the very same film is the Padam Innala Vale Kadamma, which portrays a very different aesthetic in choreography. We'll quickly see a little bit of the Sabdam. In the same movie is a Padam, and the strict Padamudra or word hand gesture correlation is much more absolute and specific, where each word is depicted with an indicative Hastabhinaya. And there's no footwork in the Padam, unlike the Sabdam, which has more emotion driven footwork accompanying the lyrics. The aesthetic in the Sabdam is more character and scene driven, and the aim appears to be a spectacle. And this is the Padam.
కనులు మూసి నా చెంత నుండిన సన్నుతాంగి మోవి చాలా చప్పరించి నన్ను కనులు మూసి నా చెంత నుండిన నన్ను కనులు మూసి నా చెంత నుండిన సన్నుతాంగి మోవి చాలా చప్పరించి సత్తారించే కన్ను తాంగి మోవి చాలా సత్తారించే నిన్నాళ్ళవలే కాదమ్మా నువ్వగో.
So, numerous other solo dances in films also, especially those performed by women, emanate a rather strong flavor of what is recognized as Bharatanatyam today. If the repertoire of female courtesan performance traditions entered the performance culture of Kuchipudi through Vedantam Lakshminarayana Shastri, these film dances point at their evidence that their movement vocabulary accompanied the repertoire. This does seem to be the case considering the ease and comfort with which the hereditary Kuchipudi choreographers compose these film dances. It must be noted that all the three Kuchipudi artists that worked in films trained, even if for a brief while, under Lakshmi Narayana Shastri. Beginning from the 1940s, the Kuchipudi gurus created a huge corpus of film dance choreographies up until the late 1960s, a corpus that includes numerous genres of dancing. In the film dances of the first half period of this time, with an approximate bracket from 1940 to 55, this genre classification is more distinct than in the latter half from 1955 to 69. In the former, dances were either classical or folk or tribal or movement songs, of which the classical and movement songs have special relevance for the arguments presented above. The distinction between these two kinds of dances is apparent not just in the choreography but also in the musicality, in terms of the structure of lyric, the instrumentation, costumes, and also the situations in which the dance is presented. These classical dances typically begin with a tirmanam of the mridangam, are danced to tillanas or padas and javalis, and are commissioned lyrics written in any of these structures. And the dancer is more often than not seen wearing a stitched costume closely resembling the Bharatanatyam costume employed for stage performances. The movement vocabulary, as discussed above, draws from the Bharatanatyam idiom with its adavas, mridras, forward and backward walks. Contrastingly, the movement songs are usually performed wearing gozama costumes, have a wide range of musical instruments along with BGMs in between stanzas, accompanying the dance that fits the description of the Oriental genre, with jerks of the shoulder and waist and random swaying of the torso. The patterns in the choreography are quite random, and often the hand gestures would be norm in classical choreography to depict the word, the meaning of the lyric. There is interaction between the performer and character as opposed to classical choreographies. We'll just watch like 30 seconds of examples of both. This is from Yogi Vemana. And the what I call the movement song, what is called the movement song.
వదలజాలరా నా వలపు దీరుపరా నిన్ను వదలజాలరా మనసారా మరులు దీరా ఈసారి నిలిచిపోరా మనసారా మరులు దీరా ఈసారి నిలిచిపోరా వదలజాలరా వదలజాలరా.
So in so many such examples, the distinction between these genres couldn't be more defined. While this was a trend until the mid-50s, there seems to emerge another genre from this time onwards, a genre that holds prime importance for us to understand the latter solo movement of Kuchipudi. Yamini?
Really, it's a wonderful feast to our eyes, Katya. Although there have been many changes in the technique and performance style of Kuchipudi dance outside Kuchipudi, there has been no noticeable changes in the Kuchipudi village. So as stated earlier, in Kalapas and Yakshaganas, Kuchipudi technique is based not only the soul of the step, but also dependent on the character. However, in solo dances like Jatiswaram, the technique is presented as it is since there is no character to consider. Let's watch this Jatiswaram performed in the old tradition by Subhashini Avasarala, disciple of Sri Vedantam Sita Rama Sastri Garu, the son of Sri Vedantam Prahalad Sarma. Akka, is this video clear? Audio and video? Can I
Yes, yes,
It
both
is
are
clear.
fine.
It is clear. Yeah. It's good.
So the same will be repeated in the second speed also. So if we watch this video, it is evident that the original form of the dance was male-oriented form. It is clear from the very first step when the hands were placed on the hip, indicating a wider stance, as it is typical to male rather than a female. Generally, nowadays we are doing with the dola hasta, but where in old tradition they used to perform in that way. Even when females first entered this dance form, they imitated the stance postures of their gurus, adopting a more male body position. Later, we can slowly see the transformation of the body lines into more feminine, graceful movements as well as the masculine lines. Thus, the transformation from male oriented art form to the inclusion of females caused a slow and gradual change in the technique. There is one clear example of a technique changes in the full extension of the hands versus the use of a square shape extension of the hands, which is called as a Chaturashra Saushtava. In this video, we can see the use of Chaturashra Saushtava more clearly than the full extension hands. Even in Diditais, the framework of the arms and legs was done in the Chaturashra Saushtvam as opposed to full extension of the hands. Even if they do Diditais, so this is the framework. So this is the borderlines of their movement. So even they do the tie, there is a no extension hand. They curve their hand. So mostly we can see the rounded movements. And even the tatte hitta goes like tatte hitta, te hitta. So this is the borderline of their movement. Observe the knee positions as well. They are not completely turned to the side nor are they in complete half sitting position, but rather pointed towards the front. And also we can notice that using of different hastas like Tripataka hasta, Mrugashirsha, sometimes Sikhara, all this. But generally nowadays we majorly use Katakamukha, Alapadma, Dola and Pataka hastas. Right. Let's see how the technique evolved outside the Kuchipudi. I hand over to Katya.
So,
Thank you,
Katya,
Vinaya.
this is very interesting, but we would also like to give time to the audience for question answers. So,
Yes, I'll be done in like 5 minutes. Will be
yeah,
fine.
Yes, sir. We will done in 5 minutes,
few
both
minutes
together.
we have, so we'll time
Yeah.
it accordingly.
Yes.
Yeah. So a working definition of the cine classical would be helpful for further analysis. While the term itself is commonly used in film circles to refer to a dance that has classical tones and yet possesses a cinematic appeal, it poses no restriction on the structure of the lyric or the instruments employed. Usually, BGMs form a large part of the musicality of this genre. The meaning of the song is barely communicated through hand gestures, and the movement vocabulary is drawn from a wide range of sources. and juxtaposes Bharatanatyam adavus and at times Kathak chakkars with the body aesthetic of the Oriental. So from 1950s, what happened, I'll cut it short and tell you that Pedasatyam and Krishnamurti both ended up creating their own banis even within film choreographies. So while Pasumarthi Krishnamurti in films, his style is described as native and having emphasis on facial abhinaya. But while he too follows the generic trend of employing Bharatanatyam movements for his classical choreographies. But his bani of cine classical comprises of Bharatanatyam adavus and movements that are not truly reminiscent of any classical idiom, but create an illusion of belonging to one. In other words, these movements do not seem to emerge from Kuchipudi adavus that we saw in Dasavatara Sabdam, nor the Bharatanatyam adavus that are seen in other examples. But Pedasatyam, on the other hand, had a very different journey. His marriage to Saudamini, a Bharatanatyam dancer herself, and their collaboration too impacted his style of dance, as it can be seen in his on-screen choreographies. In contrast with Krishnamurti's style, Pedasatyam's style was described as that which enunciated the silpam or sculpture as the hallmark of his style. The obvious influence of the Oriental was propagated by the likes of Ram Gopal, resulted in this extreme emphasis which Pedasatyam placed on the way the body is held, the high degree of complication in the hand and leg combinations and movements that are very un-adavu or adugu-like. To put differently, his version of cine classical does not cater to the accepted notion of what would be classical as Krishnamurti's does. If we have time later, I'll show you a couple of videos to contrast both. In fact, the very concept of male dance as opposing to playing a character in Yakshagana or drama, began on screen with Pedasatyam. And this formed the precursor to what can be characterized as a unisex aesthetic and movement that became Kuchipudi subsequently. Men and women in Pedasatyam's choreographies performed the same movements with no consciousness of the gender-specific aesthetic that was present until then, and even later by other Kuchipudi choreographers. We will very quickly see one video. It breaks my heart to cut that dialogue in the middle, but I have to do that. It is this negotiation with depersonalizing and desexualizing dance which Pedasatyam engaged in, combined with the fact that it was his younger student and cousin Vempati Chinnasatyam who is responsible for propagating Kuchipudi as dance form globally, that makes Pedasatyam's experiments on screen the most fascinating source of insights into the dance version of the Kuchipudi form. Another quick video just to see what happened with Kuchipudi on stage. Now, somewhere, while Kuchipudi dancers, Bhagavathulu shifted from rural spaces to Madras, cosmopolitan Madras, from center stage to being behind the camera, from their role of performer to choreographer, they unsuspectingly archived numerous visual representations of the art that was practiced in the village at the time, and also how they molded their art by blending it with other schools of aesthetic thought, and more importantly, also aided in preparing for Kuchipudi a broad movement aesthetic and vocabulary that in times to come would be recognized globally as Kuchipudi dance. I'll now hand it over to Yamini.
The movement analysis and geometric lines are clearly understood. It can be of great benefit when training the next generation of the young students, since it provide a framework for exact methodology of the movements of Nritya. In essence, you are taking an art and using the scientific methodology to help the student understand the technique of dance. So, if possible, just I will show how to understand geometrical concepts, dance movement through geometrical concept. So, this is where we can observe. Hope you can see my screen. So
Yes, ma'am.
we can notice the 45 degrees angle, 135 degrees, like lines, like a slanting line, straight line, and parallel lines of the hand and the legs, and the symmetry in the movement and the hands, and the shapes, different shapes like a rectangular shape in mandala sthanaka, and square shape and triangles. So in this way, we can understand and analyze the movement. In this way, Kuchipudi dance, which has a great history, is passed down to future generations, inviting changes at every stage to suit the circumstances of the time. Our sincere thanks to Aria University for giving this great opportunity, and my thanks to Venkat sir, Yashodakka, Panimadhav sir, and Mamta garu for their support. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Yan.
if there
And
are
thank for a very comprehensive presentation. We'll directly address the audience. If they have any questions, we are happy to take them, or any observations. So as you can see, while you're deciding whether to talk to them or not, our faculty, they are compulsive teachers. They once they begin to talk the subject, it just flows. So I think all of you should take advantage of this. Yes. In Sumi, I see you have unmuted yourself. So you
Yeah,
want to say?
yeah, I'm just looking for the hand raising icon, but I couldn't see that. I'm waiting for
That,
you to
yeah.
conclude. Okay, fine. That was a wonderful presentation by both of you, Yamini and Katyayani. Hearty congratulations. Proud to be your colleague. Yamini, I have a question for you. So, what do we call that Dhanata, Tiyam, Tattata? So what kind of chuttadagalu those item steps will come under?
Yes, Akka. So actually, Dhannatta, Tiyam, these steps come under Tisra Jati Adulu.
No, we tap
Yes,
itself
but
on.
generally we call them as Chuttadabulu category also, but most of the Chuttadabulu steps are facing towards the wall. But actually, Dannatta Tiyam, those steps come under Tisra Jati Adulu.
Oh, so even though there is a Brahmari movement in that, we don't call them as chuttadagalu, right? That's
Yes,
what
so
is confusing.
that is based on a Tisra Jati, no? Takkita, Dhannatta, Tiyam Takkatta, Dhannattam, Tiyam Takkatta. So those are the Tisra Jati.
So sorry to bother you again. So if though it falls under Tisra Jati, so under Jati Adavus we can categorize them under Tisra, right? But when it comes
Yes.
to movement, why can we call them also as Chuttadagalu? Sorry.
Yes,
Again,
generally we also calling that as a chuttadulu just for understanding that is going in a circular pattern.
circular, but
But
okay.
actually, major difference is this only these like we do this step in
Mm-mm.
chuttadulu and
Yeah,
this
yeah.
one. So
Yeah.
most of the movements which are categorized as a chuttadulu, the body mostly turns to the wall side.
Okay. Thank you, Yamini.
That's the major difference, actually.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anybody have anything to say? Subhashni garu మీరేం మాట్లాడట్లేదు. So from my side, Katya, when they changed the way they presented and when they spoke about Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi, Ramya talks about how they gave Kuchipudi to a certain section of people and they gave Bharatanatyam to a a certain section of characters and they gave Bharatanatyam to another section of characters. How do you take that?
So yes, of course. I mean, being scholars and trying to look into these things, we will notice those layers.
Yeah.
But also when you look at filmmaking as filmmaking, I think they probably stuck to the stereotypes
Yeah, no, I was looking at
of
the social angle also.
yeah, social angle. They stuck to those social stereotypes of, let's say there is a female dancer doing a solo, and it's a context in which there is more there's the caste involved, and the gender is important in that situation. Then I think they used their the Bharatanatyam vocabulary more. Actually, Kuchipudi vocabulary annadi beginning lo, what we identify as Kuchipudi vocabulary is really not seen much, except when you see these large groups of performers.
Yeah.
Like in certain movies, only when you see a whole bunch of performers are sometimes the darbus are used. Like ఏమే మాధవి ఏమే మాధవ ఇలాంటి రెపార్టే dialogues ఇలాంటివి they're used only when there are large groups of performers, rather than, I don't think they saw themselves as solo dancers at all by then.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And also the people were from Kuchipudi, but what they actually presented, as you said, is not something that has been written on stone as Kuchipudi Margam,
No.
Kuchipudi style. They just did what was needed at that time. And also the availability of artists. Who were the artists who were available for that particular? So that also mattered. For those who are not already a part of the university, as I said, we offer the certificate, diploma, and the master's programs, and there is extensive information and experiential learning that happens at the university. So I warmly invite you to come and do our programs at the university. Just to tell you the faculty, we have Dr. Anupama Kailash, now who doesn't need introduction to most of you. She teaches 3 or 4 courses, or maybe is it 5? Anu? 4 courses definitely she teaches. And we have Dr. Sumitra Veluri, who brings in all her traditional experience and knowledge to share with you. We have Dr. Amadevi, who brings in her Kalapas experience. She's the only one who has worked on 3 Kalapas from the Kuchipudi families. We have Dr. Devi Girish, who brings in a very contemporary angle to Kuchipudi and perspective of the view of history of Kuchipudi, bringing in the societal angle and the politics too. It's quite a breath of fresh air where the younger generation of Yamini and Katyani, whom you have seen, now I don't have to tell you anything about them. Devi Sindhuja, who brings in the music and the dance part together with the critique, with the social politics, and presents it to you. And we have Chandrakant, whom we don't talk much about, who gives you the Talam aspect. Talam, for most of us Kuchipudi dancers, let's face it, it is an Achilles heel. So we have Chandrakant's course where he grinds you and hones you in the diploma program and makes you good at Talam and hands you over to Anupama in the masters for a more intense Talam course. Have I covered everybody? I have a large team listening.
Yeah, Yashoda, I have a request. Why don't you also announce about Chandrakant's and mine, my
Yes.
presentation after tomorrow?
It's exactly in the next 10 hours. No, 23 hours. Right? It's tomorrow, same time. We have another webinar by Dr. Sumitra Veluri and Chandrakant. Sumi, you want to talk about yours, the topic? You want to
I
say the
think it's
topic?
it's day after. It's day after.
Yes. So we look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow too. Yeah. Sir, would you want to wind up?
Okay, so before the audience leave, I would like them to take a look at the chat area. I have posted few messages. So kindly share your contact information. There's a tiny URL. You click on it, you could enter your basic contact information. And also there's a link to upcoming webinars, like included tomorrow's one, if you are not registered yet. There's also information about how to reach out to admissions at aria.edu. Also, if you want to know more about the university, you also have a link to the web in a main landing page for the university. So I want to thank the outstanding Kuchipudi department faculty. You can't really describe, their achievements. I think their actions show their achievements. So the university is really fortunate to have such exceptionally qualified and talented, people on the faculty. So I feel, in some sense, jealous of the students who are learning from them. And I still have, my interest. I want to learn Carnatic, music. But I still remember my professor's advice: a good beginning should also end with a good ending. So I don't want to commit myself to something that I don't have time for. So if you commit yourself, you really need to do whatever it takes to fulfill that commitment. So I'm still waiting for the right moment, maybe another 1 year. So please consider this, joining these programs. I also want to make another quick comment. I know we want to end the session on time. So in the graduation ceremony, one of the speakers at the convocation, performing arts, languages, they were all classified as liberal arts. But I think he appropriately pointed that these are liberating arts, not liberal arts, liberating arts. So, you can study physics, chemistry. I'm not saying they're not important. At the end of the day, music, knows no language. Dance knows no language. It can transcend, languages and cultures. And also it's good for mental health. So today, with all the advancements and conveniences and all that, I think mental health is really needed more than any time in the history. So especially in the United States and many developed countries, India is not too far in a behind. So I think the music, the dance, the languages, literature, these are all natural, natural remedies to touch the soul and heal the soul. So that's the beauty of these programs, that we have languages, performing arts. So thank you all for joining. I'll turn it back to Dr. Yashoda Garu in case you have anything else to say before we conclude.
And I am good, sir. And thank you all for joining once again, and we look forward to seeing you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Venkat
Thank you
garu.
all.
We thank Mamta garu and Fani Madhav garu for everything. And thanks all of you that joined.
Thanks the audience. Yeah.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So thank you all. Wonderful presentation. Very impressive. We are grateful for your participation and making this an exciting event for the audience.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Namaste. We'll see you next time.